Guadeloupe is an island nation in the Caribbean. It consists of actually more than one island. And we had a great time exploring 3 of the smaller islands off of the south coast. Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley podcast. I'm talking about Petite Terre, Marie Galante, and Ile de Sens today. Today's episode of the Boat Galley podcast is sponsored by FastSeas.com. Plan your next passage using FastSeas.com. Whether you're after speed or comfort, FastSeas will find the optimum route to your destination. That's FASTSEAS. FastSeas, making weather routing simple. Use coupon code GALLEY2018 for an exclusive 10% discount. Full disclosure, FastSeas is a website that was developed by my husband, and yes, we used it for all of our passage making within the Caribbean and as well as getting to and getting from the Caribbean. Check it out. Guadeloupe. Guadeloupe was an island that when we first cruised 30 years ago, we pretty much bypassed. The scuttlebutt around the time was that if you didn't have federal documentation on your boat, they would fine you a whole lot of money and kick you out of the country within 24 hours. We, at that point, just had a state-registered boat. We had a very small budget, and we did not want to get fined and kicked out, and so we pretty much bypassed Guadeloupe. This time around, we're federally documented. Haven't heard any of those conversations about Guadeloupe kicking people out and fining them, but what we thought was going to be a fast trip again this time around was totally not, and we are completely in love with the island of Guadeloupe. We spent a fair amount of time actually in the islands on the south coast of Guadeloupe, which are part of the country of Guadeloupe. There's Petite Terre, which is a national park off of the east side, kind of southeast side. Then there's Marie Galante, which we call the pancake, La Galette. And then there's Ile de Sens, which is actually an island that consists of, I think, 4 islands. We only went to one of them. Petite Terre is a part of the national park system. And there's a shallow bar at the entrance to the harbor that can be kind of challenging in north swells because the bar is only about 9 feet deep. And when the north swells come, the water can pile up on there and form swells and breaking waves. Our entrance was actually pretty scary and not the sort of thing that we would do again. There's that budget question that comes up. The thing with Petite Terre is that you actually have to reserve a mooring and pay for it ahead of time. You're not supposed to be able to go to the park. There are only moorings. You're not allowed to anchor, not even a dinghy anchor. It's all moorings. And there aren't very many moorings that are there, at least not for pleasure boats. There are a couple of moorings that are there. There are a number of moorings that are there for big commercial boats. And there are a lot of people who come over on charter cats over from the mainland, quote unquote, of Guadeloupe every day. The island has some nice trails and some okay snorkeling, lots and lots and lots of turtles. The shallower areas are actually apparently a nursery for lemon sharks, and we did see a tiny one playing in the surf line of the tidal pool that was along the beach. There are moorings maybe for 10 boats, and there was only one other boat there the night that we stayed. But there are, as I mentioned earlier, there's a huge influx of day trippers who arrive on boats from the mainland of Guadeloupe starting at about 7 in the morning. So you're sharing what is not a very large island with 100 or more of your brand new friends. We hiked the trails on the island. We walked on the beach. We did a drift snorkel from the reef back to the boat, and we slid out of the harbor. Luckily, it was a much easier exit than an entrance. The wind had shifted just enough that getting out was a non-event. Petite Terre is a neat place to go on your own boat, but definitely watch the weather. And if you feel like the entrance is dicey at all, it's not worth the 20 euros to take your boat through what could be dangerous. We've been once. We don't feel this great need to go back, but it's a pretty cool place to go. Our next stop from there was Marie Galante. It's pancake shaped, it's very flat, and it has a couple of different anchorages. There's not really a lee anchorage because it's really pretty round. It's got a couple of small towns, some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beaches, and they certainly like to tout that they have the best rum RHUM, rum agricole, which is made directly from sugarcane, as opposed to molasses, which is what you'll find in the English rums in the Caribbean. There are 3 distilleries occupying space on this very tiny island. I think it's 28 square miles. There used to be 5 distilleries. We actually rented a car. We rented a car from one of the 2 towns to check out the scene. It took about an hour to drive around the entire island. It's a pretty cool island to drive around. There are endless fields of sugarcane, tons and tons of trees with mangoes and breadfruit and papayas just kind of dripping from them. And the road signs I love. The road signs that both have the writing in French and then also the Creole right underneath it. There were road signs that we saw that warned of turtle crossings. And sometimes I love that reminder that the tiny little things that you see remind you that you're somewhere totally new. One of the things we found a little strange is that the distilleries and the tasting rooms all close at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for the entire day. That means you're not going to go tasting rum after lunch. It means that you're probably having your rum tasting before lunch, which makes us wonder about that thinking. The distilleries are pretty small. We wound up going to just 2 of them because of the timing and when we picked the car up and the couple other things that we did. It was super cool to see the ancient windmills because all of these distilleries used to use windmills to crush cane. And at one of the distilleries, Bellevue, we could see the vats of liquid in various different states of fermentation. In Virginia, one of the things that we love to do was to go to wineries. And one of our favorite wineries had a sign behind the bar that said something along the lines of grapes only grow in beautiful places. And the same really could be said for sugarcane. We noticed that all over the place in Marie-Galante. It was pretty amazing. And then after Marie-Galante, we sailed to Ile-de-France. Yes, these islands were still in one island nation. There's a picture on my blog post that's associated with this podcast that I couldn't resist taking. And it says Les Saintes, Lesaintes, in the foreground. And in the background are 3 lines that say relaxin', relaxin', relaxin'. And you can read that as relax in Les Saintes. You can say Les Saintes is relaxin', the whole thing. That certainly was the vibe that was there. It's a group of 3 islands, 4, maybe? I forget to look. There are a few different rocks around there, but it's a group of 2 islands with 2 settlements in total. And we were there for just over a week, and we spent all of our time in Terre de Haute, exploring on land and in the water. We dug out the paddleboard. We were paddled around the harbor. We went snorkeling on a wreck that was right near where our mooring was. We did wind up renting an electric scooter and tooled all over. It was a little bit of overkill on an island with maybe 10 miles of road in total, but we got up some good hills and onto a few of the more remote beaches. It's likely that we probably would have left after a couple of days, except we had friends who were coming in on their boat and we wanted to hang out with them, which was a lovely, lovely, magical treat to see them and their boat, to relax and to share meals together. We've been talking about sharing an anchorage in the Caribbean since they started the process of building their boat, and to finally make it happen felt totally, totally surreal. We loved the small islands of Guadeloupe and can't really wait to go back. I know that we'll check those places out again. There's much more of Guadeloupe that we still have to see. We spent almost no time on the western shore of Guadeloupe at all and didn't rent a car in mainland Guadeloupe, and that's definitely on our list of priorities. But if you get a chance to go to Guadeloupe, don't miss the chance to go particularly to Marie-Galante and Ile-de-France. If you have the opportunity with the right weather, Petite Terre is a pretty cool spot to go and just to see it and to be there too. We love cruising the Caribbean because to us, you can always find these places that not a ton of people go, and you just have to go a little bit off the beaten path and you'll find new adventures, new harbors, places that you never dreamed of or thought about going. I can't wait to share an anchorage with you, whether it's in Guadeloupe or somewhere else in the Caribbean or the East Coast of the U.S. We'll be able to toast to each other and to our good fortune at being able to live this incredibly amazing lifestyle. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love hearing from our listeners. We love it when you share us with your friends. We love it when you don't forget to subscribe. Have the most spectacular week.